I had written down a bunch of bullet points for this story, but I think I'm just gonna wing it. So, in the last 3 or 4 days, I've gotten 24 text messages, Facebook messages, Facebook comments, Instagram messages about how and why I ended up here. So, in true fashion of me, I'm just gonna make a video and hopefully it answers everything you could possibly want. And I'm just gonna do it right from my truck through my GoPro because the apartment is, well, it's still not completely set up and it's all wood flooring, so the audio quality fucking is terrible. So here we go. First of all, about 20 years ago, I turned 21 years old, and on that day, my father gave me my first handgun. And with that handgun, he wrote a very nice letter, which is still kicking around his house somewhere. I actually ran into it maybe 5 or 10 years ago. But the end of the letter had a line that I will never forget. And that line was, "A bullet is like a spoken word. Once it's out, you can't take it back." So, in that regard, I will do my absolute best to not say anything in this video that will offend or upset anyone. But, knowing me, it's almost inevitable. It'll fucking happen, I'm sure. But, let's give it a try. So, going back, I gotta go all the way back to August of this year. First of all, without a doubt, I was crazy about Rochelle. I loved her more than I have ever loved another woman, maybe with the exception of my mom. But I absolutely loved her, and I really wanted us to work out forever. But going back to August, I felt some sort of shift in our relationship. I don't know what it was. I can't explain it. I just felt something, and who knows, maybe our relationship ended because I fucking had this weird feeling, and then, you know, I mean, my MO is to, you know, wallow in self-loathing and ruin things and burn bridges, and that's what I do best. So, so how I end up here in Billings, Montana, is one night I was on Google and I typed into Google, "pick a city at random." I had never heard of Billings, Montana. I had never been to Montana. I had never been anywhere. I mean, the most in the West that I had spent was basic training in Oklahoma. That was the only time on the west side of the country that I had ever spent, really west of the eastern seaboard. And it's basic training, so it's not like I'm out there sightseeing. And maybe a weekend trip with my mom and my sister to San Francisco. That's about the extent of my time on the west side of our beautiful country. So I type into Google, pick a city at random. You don't actually get a city from Google. You get a bunch of web results that, you know, will bring you to websites that will pick a random city for you. I went to one of those websites and it said Billings, Montana. And so it was the next day, and we're still in early September at this point. Rochelle and I are still together. We are still saying I love you on a daily basis. The next day, though, I put in a transfer. I went on the USPS website and put in a transfer to transfer to Billings, Montana. I figured worst case scenario, we work out just fine. You know, I knew at the time that transfers take about 6 months. They can take a year, they can take 2 years. I figured worst case scenario, I'm putting the transfer in right now. But, you know, if things work out just fine and I'm wrong, then when the transfer comes through and they say, "Do you accept this transfer?" I can just deny it and stay in Portsmouth. As it turned out, it didn't go that way, which is fine. I mean, it's working out pretty goddamn well for me. It was only a few days later that Rochelle and I had a pretty big argument. I think it's important to note that not everything you see on Facebook, on social media, is what's real behind the scenes. A couple of years ago, I know that Rochelle and I had a what we called a passionate discussion one night, and we got over it. That's, I took a picture of us that night in the midst of that passionate discussion, and it was the next morning, we're happy and smiling, and everything's back to normal. I took a picture of that too. It's important to note that not everything you see on social media is always what it seems, which I think is kind of detrimental to our society. But that's a completely different fucking topic. Anyways, moving forward a little more, I think I put in for several other cities in 5 different states. I was going west no matter what. I ended up putting in for cities in Idaho, Iowa, Wyoming, Montana, and I think South Dakota. But within a week, I withdrew all those other requests except Billings. The more that I looked at Billings, the more I was like, that is where I want to be. That is the city for me. That is just what I want. I'm going to tell this part, and then I'll get into the trip, and I'll get into how the last few days has been. So Rochelle and I, we ended up having this big argument in mid-September. We didn't talk for a week, which was, that was in itself a sign that things were not going to work out very well. We did talk about moving forward with our relationship one night. There were certain things that we each needed to work on, I guess. Over the course of the next 6 weeks, I'd say, we were checking in with each other. We were talking, we were talking, but we weren't talking like we normally do. It wasn't the, I love yous, and the last time that I kissed Rochelle was September 10th. So, we were in the same house for another month and a half, or 2.5 months. We were in the same house for another 2.5 months. And it would be another 6 weeks after September 10th before we actually officially broke up. But we were conversing one night, a few days before we officially broke up. We were talking, and she had said to me, have you even thought about what you're going to do if this doesn't work out? And I said, yeah, I'm going to move. And her mouth kind of hit the floor, and she said, what do you mean? And I told her, I'm going to move. And I will admit, it was not fair of me to put the weight on her that I did. I told her in that moment that I didn't want to stick around Portsmouth and be Rochelle's ex. But the reality is there was a lot more that went into my wanting to move than that. A lot more. That occupied about 5% of the space. I have been wanting to move out of New Hampshire for a very long time. Not even just like I don't like New Hampshire or I don't like New England. For some reason, I have this magnetic force to Rockingham County. Every time that I looked at moving within New Hampshire or Maine, I was like, for some reason, I just can't see myself not living in Rockingham County if I'm over in that area. I just can't, I don't know, I can't explain it. I just can't see myself living in Stratford County or in Maine or whatever. So, but I've been wanting to move out of the area for a very long time. This goes back very far. When my ex-wife split, I looked at moving to Florida. While Katie and I were together, I looked at moving to Wyoming. I had been wanting to move out west. I'd looked at Washington State, but their gun laws are shit, so that was off the table pretty quickly. The more that I looked at Billings, Montana, the more I was like, that is my place. That is where I need to be. And the further into the timeline that I went, the more I just felt this pull to be here. I tried to explain it, and I can't explain it. You know, call it the universe or fate or destiny. I don't know what it is, but throughout October and November, I just felt this weird, almost a drag on my soul, on my body, just to bring me here. Anyways, I'll get into that. So she says, you know, what are you gonna do? I say, I'm gonna move. She tells me that's crazy. You know, why would you do that? You know, I don't know if she thought that I was serious or not. I don't know if she believed me or not. But nonetheless, she was, you know, she did lean over and say, then I think you should go. And, you know, we're still in the midst of this conversation, and it comes out of her, you know, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you change, there's always going to be some next thing. And it's at this time that I realized, like, oh, like, we're not actually working towards us getting back together. Like, you've kind of made up your mind here. We did say I love you to each other that night. You know, she was going to walk the dog, and she came around the corner and she said, I love you, Donnie. And I said, I love you too. And I just want, you know, I really want us to work out. But I'm still a little blown away by this revelation of it doesn't matter what I change. So the next morning I wake up to a text message that says, I'm sorry for how last night's conversation went. I'm just tired, you know, I'm a little tired of the relationship topic, and what I miss most is our friendship. Now, I was still blown away by this revelation of the night before that, you know, it doesn't matter what I do. So I didn't reply to that text message, and I had to work that day, so we didn't see each other all day. And then I came home, and I mean, I was expecting she might say something to me. Maybe she was expecting I might say something to her. So in that, neither of us said anything to each other. So, and then we didn't talk on Monday. We didn't talk on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, it's the end of October, I send her my half of rent. And a couple hours later, I get a text message back, or I get a text message from her saying, thank you for rent money. We need to talk about uncoupling, and I want you to move out by November 30th. So, that was kind of like, okay, it's definitely, we're at that point. Neither one of us are the type to do this back and forth bullshit of, you know, we're together, we're not together, you know, we're either together or we're not. And so, she ended up going away for the weekend. We didn't talk the rest of that week. She ended up going away for the weekend to some conference or convention down in Texas. While she was gone, I left a letter on the dining room table saying, you know, I'm not going to try and change your mind. I do think that, you know, we have to live together for the next 30 days, a little over 30 days. We have to live together. I do appreciate you letting me stay here for the next 30 days. I think that we owe it to our relationship that we should be able to talk to each other. So I'm not going to try and change your mind, but we do owe it to each other to, you know, be friendly while we're in this house. We have to fucking live together. Like, we should be able to come home and be like, hey, how are you? How was your day? How are things at work? You know, how are you handling fucking, you know, your new position with the dog? All this, you know, we should be able to have that conversation. We owe it to each other. So she comes home from that convention and she says, you know, she came, I think she got the letter. She sent me a text. She said, okay. And then later that night, I was in the bedroom and she came in and she said, you know, I'm okay with this as long as, you know, we're in agreement that, you know, us being friendly isn't leading back to us being back together. And I said, yeah, I get it. You know, that's, you know, we've made our decision. We've made our choices. By then, she had already marked herself as not in a relationship anymore on Facebook. So, I mean, for sure, for me, that's like, you know, Katie did that, and Katie did that in a very different way. You know, she did it expecting me to, you know, beg and grovel, and we'd end up back together or whatever. But you know, once that's done, I'm like, okay, we're done. Which, you know, whatever. So. And then, you know, she said, is that, you know, so that was about the end of that conversation. And then the rest of the November went fine. for the most part. Now the problem is, now we get into a little more Billings related stuff. Problem is that I have not gotten a transfer yet. This is like October 28th. I still have not, I am obsessively checking the transfer website on my postal website. And it still just says submitted. And I am looking up Google results, I'm looking on Reddit, I'm looking on USPS forums about transfers and how long they take and what seeing submitted, that's all it said on the website was submitted. What that means, what can I expect next, what are next steps, whatever. I am obsessively checking this website every hour, every day. Now it's November, it's the beginning of November. I'm also looking for apartments out here. I got denied on 2 apartments because they had a minimum credit score and my credit score missed that minimum by 10 fucking points. So I'm freaking out a little bit. I'm panicking because I'm thinking, what am I gonna do? What will I do if I don't get this transfer? This is early November. What will I do? And I did briefly get on, I think apartments.com or something, and looked at apartments around Portsmouth. And I was like, I can't fucking afford to live around here. Like, there's no way. Even with the money, I make good money, but even with the money that I make, I can't afford to live around here. So it's like the first week of November, I finally get one of the apartments, the one that I'm in now, says, yep, we got you, buddy. We need you to send us a $200 deposit to hold the apartment until December 14th. Because I had told them, I had told everyone, I had to stay in New Hampshire for reasons that I am not getting into, at least not in a public way. But I had to stay in New Hampshire until December 11th. And I knew it was going to take me 3 days, or at least that it could take me 3 days. It could take as much as 4 or 5 days, depending on the weather, but all that cooperated. But I figured the best case scenario, me traveling across the country, averaging about 55 miles an hour, I figured I could be here by Thursday night. And I had graphite with me, so I had to plan on hotels and shit. So I figured I could be out here December 14th. So the apartment says, yep, send us a $200 deposit. The apartment is being cleared out this week, and we will hold it for you until December 14th if you send us a $200 deposit. So I do. First week of November, I have sent the deposit. I have signed a lease on an apartment in a city across the fucking country, in a state that I've never been to, without having a transfer, which is crazy as I think back on all of it. But I was also like, I don't know what it is, but I have to be there. Something is pulling me there. So November 13th, and I will do my best during this portion to not start crying. But I might, because every time I have retold this story, I do. I get emotional and understand that they are tears of joy, tears of happiness, tears of disbelief that it all fucking worked out. So November 13th, I go into work, and I had been in contact already with, I was working 10 hours a day at my job and an additional 10 hours a day on mountain time, conversing back and forth with the Oregon, Idaho, Montana District Human Resources. I was in contact with the supervisors here in Billings, Montana. I was in contact with the postmaster in Billings. I was in contact with Human Resources in Maine. I was talking to my supervisors. I was emailing people whose email address I wasn't supposed to have. I was working while working. I was putting in 20-hour days. I was barely sleeping. I was sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night if I was fucking lucky, because I was so stressed. And so one of the human resources people out here had said, I wonder if we could borrow you from Portsmouth. And I didn't really understand what that meant. Ultimately, I found out what she meant by that was that Billings would be borrowing me from Portsmouth until the transfer went through, and then I would be a full-time Billings carrier. But I didn't really know what that meant. So November 13th, I go into work and I talk to my union president. I said, hey, what do you know about borrowing carriers? And he says, well, I don't really know much about it, but, you know, here's the business agent, you know, his name is Ken, and here's his phone number, give him a call. So I call this guy, and he was a total asshole. I hope I never talk to this man again. I call him. It was like 4 o'clock at night, 4:30 at night, on a Monday after a holiday weekend, and I'm hours behind on my job. I mean, I didn't get out of work that night until 9:30 or 10. You know, it's 4:30 in the afternoon, and I basically just started my route because I had to, you know, do work for other people who weren't there. So I call this guy. It's like 4:30 at night. I call this guy, and he says, you know, I say to him, hey, my name's Don Gates. I'm a carrier in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I'm trying to transfer out to Billings, Montana. It's not really going anywhere. I wondered if you could maybe give me some information about, you know, how to make this happen. And he says, first he says, what's your name? How'd you get my phone number? Because he doesn't like people having his phone number, which I guess I can relate to. I said, my name is Don Gates, carrier in Portsmouth. And he says, why don't you explain to me how you think a transfer works? Because clearly you've been lied to somewhere along the way. And I was like, well, I don't really know how it works. That's why I'm on the phone with you. And we're on the phone for 10 minutes. And over the course of 10 minutes, this guy just completely deflates me. I mean, for the last month and a half, I've been really excited about moving out here. This guy is like, it's not gonna happen. Transfers don't work that way. You know, this is gonna take at least a year. You're number 3 in line to even get transferred. The number 1 guy in line put his transfer in back in January, you know, and he's not there yet. So, you know, this guy is just a total asshole on the phone. And while we're on the phone, my thought in my head is, what have I done? I have spent the last three or 4 weeks telling people that I am moving. I didn't tell everyone. It was never public on Facebook or Instagram. If I didn't tell you, don't take it personally. There were a lot of people I didn't tell. And I spoke to my therapist about that, and the reason why was because, you know, I was afraid that I might not do it. You know, one of Rochelle's complaints about me was that I would say I was going to do something and then I wouldn't follow through with it. And what Rochelle may not have realized was that was never exclusive to her. My autobiography could be named not no follow through, because I have spent my whole life saying I'm going to do something and then I don't fucking do it. So I was afraid that on Veterans Day weekend, I went and hiked a mountain with my buddy, a bunch of my buddies, but mostly me and one buddy spent our time together. And we had talked about how, like, this time of year, it's December right now, people will post on social media, getting back to social media, something like, you know, 2024, I'm gonna start going to the gym. And then a bunch of people will like and comment on that and be like, yeah, good for you, go for it, you know, you're gonna do great, blah, 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 blah. And then they get that rush, and now that rush is satisfied. So they've gotten the reward without putting in any of the work. And I was afraid that something like that would happen with me. If I tell everyone, if I make it very public that I am moving away, that I would get that rush of people being like, oh, you know, that's too bad, we're gonna miss you, good luck out there, blah, blah, blah. And then I just wouldn't do it. So that's kind of how I felt on the phone with this guy as he's saying this isn't gonna happen. So I get off the phone with him, and it's a few minutes later that I was like, you know what? Fuck that guy. I'm going no matter what. I am doing this no matter what. I am going to go. And if it comes down to it, on December 9th, I will work at the post office in Portsmouth, and I will resign at the end of the day. And I am going. And I will figure it the fuck out when I get there. I'll figure it out. I'll find a job when I get there. That is November 13th. And then just a few minutes later, just a handful of minutes later, I'm delivering mail to the Home Depot in Portsmouth, and I see a Toyota Tacoma come through the lot, which is the same truck that I have. And this Toyota Tacoma had a black Montana license plate. And I thought, I never take signs. I never look at anything as like, oh, it's a sign from the universe or it's a sign from God or whatever. I never take that shit. I saw that truck and I thought, I am taking that one. I am taking that sign. I'm taking that sign that I am fucking going. So on Wednesday, November 15th, I was so committed to going no matter what, I actually got on the UPS website and applied for a job in Billings, Montana. I got all the way through the process, and at the end of the process it said, congratulations, we want to offer you a job. You start on Friday. And I was like, well, I can't fucking be there on Friday. So I never completed that process. Later that night, my supervisor at work called me and he says, I just got off the phone with Human Resources. They sent me an email looking for a recommendation. Now I know through all of my research from Reddit and Google and UPS forums, USPS forums, it goes, you get a acceptance letter, and then they will ask for a recommendation, and then you get a job offer. Somewhere along the way, I've missed the acceptance letter, and we've gone to recommendation. So he tells me that they're looking for a recommendation. He is going to fill it out that night. He will make sure that no matter what, before he leaves that night, he will get it done. And I was like, oh my God, this is, here it is. Like, this is what this is it. So I had been home all day that day, just staring at the ceiling. I swear to God, I had been home for 8 or 9 hours that day, and I spent the whole day just staring at the ceiling. With the notable exception of that 1 hour that I took to apply to the UPS job. Other than that, I just stared at the ceiling, thinking, what am I going to do? What's going to happen? What does the future look like? So I get off the phone with him. I was like, I got to get out of the house. I got to go do something. So I thought, I'm going to go to Lowe's. I'll go to Lowe's. And I'm going to, fuck around at Lowe's, see what I haven't thought of yet for my apartment. So I go to Lowe's. I'm walking around Lowe's. My supervisor calls me again, and he says, I just got off the phone with whoever out in the Oregon, Idaho, Montana District Human Resources. I just got off the phone with that person, and they're taking your offer. They're taking your transfer. You are going to be starting in Billings. Here it comes. I can feel it. You're going to be transferred to Billings, Montana. The effective date is going to be December 2nd. And I was like, I can't be there December 2nd. And he says, it's fine. I told them that. They're totally fine with that. They are taking you December 2nd because they're also hiring 7 other people that day. And by hiring you December 2nd, it gives you all of your seniority that you already have with the post office. So it puts you above those 7 other people. I got off the phone with him, and I'm standing in Lowe's. I get off the phone with him, and I broke down. I'm walking around Lowe's just like this, trying to cover my fucking face. And eventually I couldn't anymore. I was like, I gotta go out to my truck. I sat right in this seat and I broke down. I just started crying. All of the stress of the breakup, of the move out, of the, the transfer, of this guy that I talked to that told me it's not gonna happen, of, what am I gonna do? All of that stress, I had just been pushing and pushing to the back of my brain. And when I got that phone call that it was going to happen and that I didn't have to fucking worry about that shit anymore, it all came crashing down like a waterfall. I mean, it all just hammered me into the fucking ground. It just, I mean, it all hit me all at once. I just sat in my truck crying for 10, 15 minutes. And my only thought in that moment, my only, real thought outside of holy shit, was the only thing that sucks right now is I don't have anyone to share this with. I have just gotten the best news that I've gotten in 2023. All of 2023, I have just gotten the best news. And the one person who I really would want to share that with would be Rochelle, but we're not in that kind of space of talking to each other with that kind of shit. So that was my only real thought, I got out of the truck, I went over to Target now, and I tried to walk around Target, but I still just have tears in my eyes. And I was like, I can't fucking do anything right now. So I went out and I got something to eat. And I went home and I tried to tell Rochelle, but I mean, she just, she didn't have the same enthusiasm. She didn't share my enthusiasm about it all. So a couple days later, or it was a week later, because I'm still a little like, this is what my supervisor has told me, but I don't believe shit until it's like in writing and I have signed stuff and I know that it's all gonna happen and whatever. So it's about a week later, my phone rings and area code 406, which I know, Montana. I answer the phone. It's one of my new supervisors. She tells me, I'm emailing you right now the offer letter. I need you to sign that offer letter and return it to me. No problem. So I get that email. This time, on the other hand, now I have screenshot that offer letter and I sent it to fucking everyone. I sent it to my sister. I sent it to my supervisor. I sent it to coworkers. I sent it to friends. Friends that would share my enthusiasm. I sent it to, I was like, I'm not keeping it to myself right now. No fucking way. I was just so elated. I got to jump back a little bit. When I told Rochelle that I was going to move and her mouth almost hit the floor and she said that, it was crazy and whatever. It's a couple days later, me and my dad went out to breakfast and he asked, how are things going with Rochelle? I said, I'm pretty sure it's over, Dad. And he had said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to move. I'm going to move out west. And he said, well, that sounds awesome. He had the opposite. He had a 180-degree opposite reaction. That sounds awesome. That sounds really exciting. That sounds like a great adventure. I think that's a great idea. And that was, when he said that, I was like, this is another, this is a sign, I guess, that that this is the right thing to do. So I'm going to do it. And admittedly, he and I went up to Rangeley a few weeks later, and on the ride home, he said, when you told me that you were going to move out west, I thought you meant Keene. He said, I didn't realize you meant the other side of the country. So I get that offer letter. A week later is Thanksgiving. Had a great Thanksgiving. Went for a motorcycle ride with my friends Chris and Donna, and then went over to my dad's house for Thanksgiving dinner. It was me, my dad, and my sister. And they both gave me some really, really great going away gifts. My father gave me a great bottle of Yellowstone bourbon, which is apropos because I now live in Yellowstone County. My sister got me the coolest gift. I'm gonna try and splice a video in here of this little gift. It's a light. It's a little lamp, and this lamp changes colors, and I can assign my color and she can assign her color, and then if I touch the lamp, her color will, or I don't know, I'm not actually sure. She'd do a better job of explaining that, but if I touch the lamp, then her lamp will light up with my color. I think that's how it works. So my color is blue, her color is purple. If I touch the, yeah, that must be how it works. If I touch the lamp, her lamp back in New Hampshire will change to blue. And then if she touches the lamp, my lamp will change to purple. So it's kind of a cool, like, hey, thinking of you, you know, hey, you know, we're very far apart, but we're not that far apart type of thing. It's really cool. So I did, in the last 2 or 3 weeks that I was in New Hampshire, I did start telling some people. Obviously, everyone at work found out real quick. Everyone, all my coworkers anyways, found out real quick. Then I started telling some of the people that I delivered mail to. Initially, way back in September, I thought, I'm gonna put in this transfer, I'm gonna leave, and the only people that are gonna know are gonna be my supervisors. And one day people will just be like, hey, where's Donnie? You know, whatever happened to Donnie? The more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know, that's not really fair to a lot of people, including myself. You know, I want to be able to say bye to these people. I don't need a big fanfare. I didn't want any sort of going away party. I didn't want anything like that. But I at least wanted these people to have the chance to say goodbye. You know, not goodbye, because it's never really goodbye. But I wanted these people to have the chance to say good luck out there and whatever. So, and to tell them too, like, hey, I will miss you. So, so November 30th comes, it's time to move out of the apartment. I moved into a hotel with Graphite. Me and Graphite stayed in hotels for 2 fucking weeks. Starting November 30th, we stayed at a hotel in Portsmouth for, right up until December 11th. My sister had a nice little going away dinner. Very small, very, very small. It was me, my dad, his girlfriend Paula, my sister, this guy that she's seeing, Randy, my nephew and his girlfriend, 2 of my aunts and 2 of my cousins. And really, that was about as big as I would have wanted it to be. I did not want some sort of crazy, you know, let's invite our entire family and friends and all this shit. Like, I didn't want any of that. I just wanted something very small. So we met up at a little restaurant in Manchester, had a really great server who was really tolerant of all of our needs. And my sister gave me a bunch more, even more going away things. I had asked for basically, you know, what would, like, she had asked me, what do you need? And I said, well, I need the things that I'm not thinking of. Like, I know that I need, like, you know, what would you fill a medicine cabinet with? These are the things that I'm not thinking of. I talked to my friend Jay. I called him one night and told him I was moving. And while we were on the phone, he said, you know, when you get there, you know, you can pack as much as you want right now, but when you get there, you're gonna start unpacking and be like, fuck, I forgot XYZ. And sure enough, I've been here for 3 days and I've probably made 10 trips to Walmart. Which fortunately, Walmart is only like 2 miles down the road. So, had a great last week or so in Portsmouth. Port City Nissan was amazing. I walked in on my last day. My last day was last Saturday. I walked in and all the salespeople, all the finance people, all the secretaries, all these people are on the sales floor when I walked in the door, and they're all clapping for me. And they gave me a great little going away gift bag, which included a Port City Nissan t-shirt. So I'll be happy to wear that. I will wear that proudly. They gave me a nice little Yeti tumbler for some bourbon. They gave me one of those, like, 22-ounce Yeti cups for you know, beer or coffee. Probably mostly beer. So they were great. They gave me a few other things. They gave me a little keychain with a compass on it so I can find my way home. And that was it. that was it. The end of, December 9th was my last day at Portsmouth Post Office. December 10th, my dad met up with me. We went up to Maine and picked up this fucking monster truck. If you saw my Facebook, you saw this moving truck, which was so much bigger than what I needed. I probably needed like a 19 or maybe even a 16-foot truck. I ended up with a 26-foot truck. This thing was huge. And then I also had a car trailer on the back of it. So this thing in total was like 90 feet long. I mean, the truck was just enormous, but so easy to drive. I had no issues driving it at all during the course of basically Sunday through Thursday. And then also Friday and Saturday, I had to move it around a bunch around the city. But it really was super easy to drive, a lot easier than I had expected. Probably a lot easier than my dad expected, because my dad probably asked me 50 times, are you sure going to be able to handle that big truck? And it went really great. Loading it was real easy. I had the snowmobile, the motorcycle, and my gun safe put on at a loading dock. So that went on nice and easy. And then my dad and I went over to the storage unit that I had and put everything else on, and it took us maybe 45 minutes to load everything. And then we were done. And then Monday afternoon, I left New Hampshire at 5 o'clock at night. So left New Hampshire in the dark, and I went to Syracuse, New York, in the snow. In the snow. It was a little hinky, but we made it. Me and Graphite made it. No incidents at all. Got to Syracuse, New York about 11 o'clock that night. Got up the next morning at like 6. Yeah, I think I went to bed about 1 in the morning that night. Got up the next morning at like 6 o'clock in the morning. Hit the road, headed for Chicago. Ohio is the flattest state I've ever been through. It's just farmland on either side, and it's not even like good farmland like cows and stuff. It's just fields. It's just fields forever on either side of you. But got through Ohio and Indianapolis, or Indiana rather. Got through Ohio, Indiana, into Illinois, and over to Chicago. Got to Chicago about 8 o'clock that night, I think. So about, was it like 14 hours on the road. Got to Chicago, got everything set up that I needed to, get Graphite out. Getting Graphite out of the truck and relaxed was always priority number one. On that day, on Tuesday, fucking Graphite, we're in Ohio at a rest stop, and I let him out of his carrier so that he could stretch his legs around the truck and, have some water, have something, I gave him a little delectable packet, and him and I are, I got something to eat, so I'm sitting in the truck with him. He's fine. He's over on the passenger seat, just sitting there. And I'm thinking like, okay, you know what? He's doing okay right now. I had the litter box on the floor. I never ended up needing it because he never ended up using it. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to start driving, and I'm going to let him stay out of his carrier. So he had jumped down, and if you look at the side, if you look at that truck, it's just a cab. It's just a cab. There's no back seats, no access to the back of the truck, nothing like that. So there's not a lot of space for him to go anywhere. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start driving. I'll let, he had jumped down under my feet. I figured he went behind the seats. So I was like, I'll drive for a little bit, and, eventually he'll come out and want to jump back up here. I get 90 minutes down the road, and I'm calling to him, and he's not coming. And I see a rest area coming up, so I was like, I'm going to, that's enough. I'm pulling up to this rest area, and I got to get him out of wherever he's at. So I pull up to this rest stop. I get out of the truck, and I look for him, and he's not in the truck. I can't find him. I was like, come on, boy, come here, buddy, come on, Graphite. He's not coming out. That escalates to, come on, Graphite, seriously, let's go. Come on, it's time to get out. After a couple more minutes, that escalates to, Graphite, get the fuck out right now. Graphite, get out here. I'm not fucking playing around anymore. Get out. And I can't find him. I empty the cab of that truck looking for him. And now I'm panicking because I'm like, what if he got out? You know, what if I had let him out of that carrier and then I got out of the moving truck real quick and he jumped out and he's fucking wandering around that parking lot 90 minutes back. And now I got to drive 90 minutes back and search a parking lot for a black cat. And I'm also thinking like, oh, this is just what I fucking need. Like, oh, you moved away and you lost your cat in the process. Great job. So after 20 minutes of searching for him, I realized that under the passenger seat is boxed off and there is a tiny little opening. I mean, it couldn't have been more than this big. It's a tiny little opening. And I reached into that opening and looked and feel down, and there he is. I can feel his fur. And I was like, get out of there, let's go. And the good thing about Graphite is he's the best at playing hide and go seek, but once you find him, he will come out. So when I reached down and touched him and I said, come on, let's go, get out of there, he crawled out on his own and came to me. And I'm hugging him in the parking lot, and I was like, you scared the shit out of me. So now it's back in the carrier. Now he's going in the carrier. So that was Tuesday. Tuesday night, I texted my sister and I said, if someone asked me to draw a map of this country, I might be able to do the Eastern Seaboard, but the reality is I had no idea how far away I was really moving. When you look at a map of America, I mean, I was thinking like, yeah, whatever, it's Ohio. You know, I'm gonna leave New England, I'm gonna get to Ohio, then I didn't realize I was gonna hit Indiana at all. I was like, I'm gonna leave Ohio, I'm gonna get to Illinois, and then Montana is just like, I don't know, a couple hundred miles outside of Illinois, right? I had no idea how very far away I was really moving. So I get up Wednesday morning, Wednesday morning, get up Wednesday morning in Illinois. We ended up sleeping in a little bit. We slept until like 7:30 that morning. Get up, hit the road at 8:30, I think, and get to, Sioux Falls. Went to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Got there at like, it must have been about 8 o'clock that night. It was pretty late. It must have been about 8 o'clock that night. Got there about 8 o'clock. And I was tired. I was beat from the day. So went to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock that night. And I woke up at 3 in the morning. And you ever wake up and you're like, I'm not sleeping anymore. I already know I'm not sleeping anymore. And I knew, for some reason, I thought that the trip from Sioux Falls to Billings was going to be my short day. I thought that I got to Sioux Falls and I had like 6 or 7 hours left. No, I had, by maps, I had 10 hours, and that's without stopping. And I already know that with stops, it's going to add at least an hour. So I wake up at 3, and I was like, I'm not sleeping anymore. Let's just get on the road. Let's fucking wrap this up. So we hit the road at, I think it was like 4:30 in the morning. We hit the road on Thursday, and spent most of the day in South Dakota. It was about 4.5 hours through South Dakota. Then maybe, I mean, it wasn't very long in Wyoming. We were in Wyoming for half an hour maybe. And then it was Montana. And once we hit Montana, we still had 4.5 hours of driving to go. So, but we ended up getting here just before 3 o'clock or 3 p.m. Just before 3 p.m. on Thursday. And I am sure that when you think about a drive like this across the country, the thought in your head is like, wow, it sounds great, a lot of fucking beautiful sights, and I'm certain there are. But I did most of my driving in darkness. And the entire drive is really just a blur. I left New Hampshire and I had what pilots call get there-itis. I just want to get there. At any expense, I will get there. I will sacrifice sleep. I will sacrifice food. I will barely eat. I just want to be on the road and driving. You know, 1 mile an hour is better than 0 miles an hour. So I don't care what it takes. I'm getting there. So I didn't have a lot of sightseeing. In fact, I think, I was so far west on the central time zone that the sun didn't come up on Thursday morning for me until about 8:15 in the morning. So I didn't see a lot. I do remember very well coming through, in the daylight hours of South Dakota, coming through Wyoming and Montana, just looking out in awe. And I am still looking out in awe, even right now as I record this, thinking, wow, what a beautiful country we have. How fortunate are we to have this amazing, beautiful country. And I almost wish more people did something like this, whether it's come here, Phoenix, Florida, travel more to really appreciate the beauty of our country. A lot of that drive I spent in clarity and perspective and feeling a lot of, I guess, grateful is the word to use. All of this starts with a bad day with Rochelle. And I wish, I don't know, that might not be the right word. I would like to say that I don't still have a lot of love for her. I don't think that I could honestly say I don't still love her. I am, in the last month of us being, of us living together, not being together, I would be packing stuff and I would think to myself, what have we done? Because I do think that, looking back on it, I guess I did in reality burn that tank all the way down till there was nothing left in it. But I have a hard time believing that we didn't have more in the tank, that we didn't have another 2, 3, 4, 5 years left in us. If love is not still there, then the only emotion that I would care to express towards Rochelle is gratitude. I feel very grateful for the time that we had, all the fun times that we had. We had significantly more than I could ever count. The good days, by a long shot, outweighed the bad. I think that if you asked me to count how many bad days or times there were, I think that I could do that, with both hands. There might have been 10 days. I think that might be a stretch. I genuinely loved her more than I have ever loved another person. She was amazing. She was great. She was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. But without all of that happening, I don't end up here today. I don't end up in this new city doing the thing that I have been saying for a long time to myself that I want to do. I don't argue the fact that it is fucking wild that I just typed into Google, pick a city at random. My sister had texted me in November or something like that and said, I was thinking, I might be able to come visit you at some point. And she had said February. And I was like, I don't think you want to come out here in February. It's probably gonna be pretty cold. And she said, yeah, I would have chose a warmer climate. And, I'm here because of a reason. I told my cousins, I told a few people. I don't know what that reason is. I wish I did. I really genuinely wish I did, and maybe I'll find it eventually. But something pulled me here. And at a certain point in November, it felt like even if I wanted to change my mind, I could not change my mind. Every time that I thought, am I making the right choice here? Every single time without fail, within minutes, something would happen that would let me know, no, you're making the right decision and you need to do this. one morning I was at work and I was putting mail together, and I had the thought, like, I don't know if this is the right choice. And within 2 minutes, another coworker came and handed me a letter and said, hey, this came for you. And it was my offer. It was my offer to sign. Of course, I had already signed it by email, but now I'm getting it, the physical offer letter. Another time, I'm working, I'm out on the street, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I'm making the right choice here. And within a couple minutes, I go check my email, and I have an email from the apartment complex saying, hey, we received your security and first month deposit. We just need you to send us a copy of your, that you have started power to that apartment. So it was like every time that I had these thoughts of, I don't know if I'm making the right choice here, I would get some sort of sign like, yes, you are doing the right thing. Go fucking do it. You need to fucking do it. It was like, I don't know if it was my soul or the universe, or I'm not a religious person, but if it was some sort of divine intervention, I don't fucking know. But something was pulling me here. Starting with that Google search and culminating with the offer letter and all these different signs that just kept saying, get there, you need to be there, that is where you need to be. And after that dinner that my sister put together, my cousins texted me and said, there's just something different about you. You used to be filled with so much anger and rage, and which I didn't even realize. And you just seem at peace, which is an excellent way to put it, because that is exactly how I feel. I feel at peace. I feel lighter than I ever have. I feel excited about whatever the future is bringing. I had therapy over the phone the other day, and I told my therapist that when Rochelle and I first had our final argument, I had therapy a few days later, and my therapist asked me, how are you doing? And I told her that I had 3 thoughts on my mind. I forget what the first one was. I don't remember what it was. I told her the second thought was moving away. Of course, by then I had already chosen Billings. And my third thought was suicide. And I told her that I thought that the suicide part was really just, that was more of a falling back on almost, it sounds weird to say it, but almost a comfort zone. Suicidal thoughts are something that I, for a decade plus, maybe 2 decades, have just been a constant in my head. And during the time that I was with Rochelle, they were not. They weren't there. I was just incredibly happy, and I had no thoughts of suicide. But in that moment, I thought, you know what, fuck it. What's the future gonna be? I don't fucking care. But it was a fleeting thought. It wasn't like an actual thing. And her response, I would like to say that I thought that, when she asked me that, I said, well, my first thought is that me and Rochelle are gonna work this out. But I think that that's wrong, because whatever that first thought was, after I told her all 3, she said, well, all of those sound very final. And I haven't had that thought since that day when I told my therapist that. I haven't had any thoughts of suicide. In fact, quite the opposite. The only thought that I really had was, I am so glad that I had never gone through with any of those suicidal thoughts in the last 20 years. Because I am here. If I had followed through on any of that, then I don't get to be here right now in this place that I've never been, about to meet a bunch of people who I've never met, about to, open up a new circle. Someone asked me, or someone said to me, you last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago now, said to me, you have so much love and support here in New Hampshire. Why would you want to leave that? And without really thinking at all, I said, It's because I have so much love and support here in New Hampshire that I possess the confidence that it would take to do this in the first place. I feel incredibly confident that everything's going to be okay. And this is happening for some reason, and I can't wait to find out what it is. I don't know how long it'll take to find out what it is. I put a timeline on myself. I said I'm going to be here for 6 months. So mid-April, I will decide, do I like it here? Do I want to move somewhere else? Do I want to move back to New Hampshire? You know, if I like it here, great, I'm sticking around. If I don't like it here, I'll put in a transfer, except this time with the transfer, I don't have to be pushy about it like I need to get there fucking now. Instead, I can put in the transfer and wait it out. And if it takes a year, if it takes 6 months, if it takes 2 years, whatever. And in that time, I might decide, you know what, I changed my mind. I actually do love it here. I want to stay. So I put a timeline on myself. In 6 months, we'll see how much I still love it. But I can tell you that after about 72 hours in this city so far, I fucking love it. I absolutely love it. I wish I had done this 20 years ago. It is everything I hoped it would be and so much more. If you saw my sunset picture the other day, you know, I'm a sucker for a pretty sunset. And I've never seen anything like that in New Hampshire, ever. I've been on mountains and watched the sunset from New Hampshire. I have never seen anything like that. And that is my back patio. That I can watch that every night for the rest of the time that I'm here. Assuming I stay in that apartment. But I can tell you that if I were to move, it's gonna be in a place where I have that same kind of view. I can't believe how lucky I got with the apartment. You know, I like I said, I got declined on 2 other apartments. I've driven by them in the last couple days. I would not want them. So again, everything happens for a reason. For some reason, I don't fucking know. But I can tell you that I cannot wait for the future. I'm so excited. Tomorrow morning I start work. As we speak, I still need to do a bunch of unpacking. This video was way longer than I expected it to be. I thought it was gonna take 20 or 30 minutes. And it's been over an hour. So if you watched it all the way through, then I appreciate you. And I hope I answered all of your questions, if you had them in the first place. So, someone else said to me, you know, aren't you gonna be, you know, you're gonna be alone on Christmas? What about that? You know, and I could have thought like, oh yeah, that's gonna be sad. My cousin had said to me like, you know, I can't believe you're leaving before Christmas. Problem with a statement like that is that this is something that I'm not the only one in my life. I'm probably not the only one in the world that has ever thought I want to move away. But so many people, including me, have been like, well, I'd like to move away, but I want to move away, but my job. I want to move away, but my family. I want to move away, but this. You know, but whatever. You know. So, you know, if it was, well, I don't want to move before Christmas. Well, right after Christmas is my dad's birthday. And, you know, well, I can't believe you're going to move before Memorial Day. And I can't believe you're going to move before, I can't believe you're going to move before your birthday. I can't believe you're going to move before Halloween. And before you know it, we're back at Christmas. Like, there will always be a reason to not fucking do it. And leaving Massachusetts, or leaving New Hampshire and Massachusetts on Monday night, my right leg would not stop shaking, not out of any fear or anxiety, but out of the excitement that this was actually fucking happening. And the whole drive here, I just kept thinking to myself, I can't believe this is real. And the last 3 days, including this morning, I was driving down the road and I would just start laughing, and then I start crying, and then I'd start laughing and crying. And it's all tears of joy and happiness, and just, I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm here. I drive around this city and I go, I'll think, or I'll even say out loud sometimes, I can't believe this is my home. This is where I live. These are my people. And I mentioned a minute ago something about, you know, opening circles. I didn't leave one circle and I'm starting a new circle. I am creating a new circle. I still have my circle back in New Hampshire. I'm creating a second circle. And who knows, I might create a third, fourth, fifth, I don't know. But I know that I am opening up the people that I care about in my life. So thank you, all of you, for being a part of my life and being a part of this incredible journey. And I hope that I don't annoy you with how often I expect I will be posting pictures of just how incredible this place is. Also, don't fucking move here, okay? I moved away for a reason. I gotta be careful about how much beauty I post, because I have a feeling I want to keep this to myself. I can't say it enough. It is beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if the people who have lived here their whole lives realize what they have, because several people who have lived here their whole lives have said to me, "You moved here on purpose?" I mean, I guess technically I did. Technically I moved here by accident, but I am very happy to be here. So thank you all. I am gonna go get the rest of my apartment unpacked, and I hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I will talk to you when I talk to you. Bye.